Hey everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to walk you through our composting system that we've been using on our urban homestead for the past 7 or 8 years. Not only is this system awesome because we're only actively composting for about 1 month out of the whole entire year, but it's also awesome because we're recycling all of our kitchen scraps, yard waste, and chicken waste into a nutrient-rich fertilizer for our garden where we grow vegetables for our family in the summertime. Hey everybody, welcome back. I really wanted to show you our composting system for our urban homestead. If that's something that you want to incorporate into your urban homestead, it's been such an awesome way to reduce food waste going to the landfill, and it also has been just super awesome because we have recycled it into our garden every year, and we've been able to build up a really nutrient-rich garden for all of our vegetables that we plant. So we live in the Northern Rockies where it is really cold. Our winters are super brutal and super long, and so doing a composting system all year round wasn't a system that we really wanted to figure out or work with. Not to mention, if you actually want to make it work, you need to be turning it regularly and checking it regularly and adding to it what it needs, and that just wasn't something that we were interested in. It's a system that's worked for us, and if you wanted to incorporate composting into your life, this is a great way to do it. So let's go. Okay, as you can see, this is out by our cars, by our boat. It's a really tight space. And these are the compost bins that we created. They're just made out of pallets. They're up against our neighbor's fence, so we put some plastic between it and the fence so we wouldn't decompose their fence, which worked pretty well. And we have a lid on it because it snows a lot where we live. The roof prevents it from getting like totally covered in snow through the winter. I put these boards on the front of it because as the compost builds up, it tends to spill out, and so those boards prevented it from spilling out. Once a year in the springtime, whenever the garden starts to melt off, I just take these boards down, take all the compost out in the wheelbarrow. It just takes a couple trips, and then I put it on the garden bed to compost. So that's our system. Another thing that we got going on back here is that this is where I decided to plant all of the raspberry bushes because raspberries shoot out runners, and so if you don't want spiky little things coming up all around your yard, you really want to be planting them somewhere out of your space. So I planted them back here, and the snow just melted off, so they haven't started budding yet. But they get so many nutrients from the compost, which is super awesome for them. It means that we don't have to fertilize them and stuff. So I guess just a little tidbit if that's something that would work for you. All right, it is the next morning. Yesterday evening, I took everything out of the compost bins that have been accumulating in there for a year, took them over to the garden bed, and now what I need to add is straw and water to kick off the composting process. So since we are just coming out of winter, I need to hook my hose up because I haven't done that yet, and add some straw and mix it all in. So pretty soon in the next few days we should start seeing some steam coming off the compost pile, which is always super exciting to me. I don't know why I love seeing the steam come off. It's just so cool to me that it gets so hot in there. So that's what we're gonna do now. Add some straw, add some water, and mix it all up. The 4 main ingredients you need for composting are water, air, nitrogen, and carbon. Water and air are pretty straightforward, but nitrogen and carbon take a bit more planning for the right ratios. Nitrogen comes from green sources that are still alive, like grass clippings, plant cuttings, kitchen scraps, and chicken manure. Carbon, on the other hand, comes from brown sources like leaves, wood chips, and shredded paper. You generally want your compost pile to be as wet as like a wrung sponge, and the right ratio is about 30 parts carbon to about 1 part nitrogen. So you need all of these things to really make your composting pile really start heating up. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with our compost because when I first took it out of the compost pile and piled it up and watered it, it got really hot, and it was fine and it was doing its job. And then a few days had passed. I went to go turn it like you're supposed to, watered it like you're supposed to. It feels fine and it looks fine, but the heat that was in it in the first pile, now it's totally gone in this second pile. So I'm trying to troubleshoot it, and this kind of happens every year. You have to kind of like troubleshoot what's going on. And so I think I need to add more nitrogen. So I'm going to take all of the straw from the chicken coop and put it in here, which I had done before, but maybe it needs some more, and add some more water to it, and hopefully that does the trick. So yeah, it's just not hot in there at all right now, which is a problem. All right, here we go. Every spring when it's time to compost, it always takes some troubleshooting. Some years the compost gets so hot so fast that I have to turn it every 3 days or so. Then other times, like this year, it takes ages for it to get hot. When it doesn't get hot enough soon enough, I add chicken poop and usually needs some water. Or when it gets so hot, almost too fast, then I add some straw for carbon to balance things out a bit better. This year was a bit strange because no matter what I did to the compost pile, it didn't seem to really get cooking like it usually does. The only thing I can think is that when I took everything out of the compost bins, half of it was already composted. So maybe there just wasn't that much to compost this year. That's definitely one of the fun things about homesteading and working with the earth, is that it's not always straightforward and takes experimenting and testing. Some years are better than others, and that's okay. All right, I finished turning the compost pile now, and hopefully it's gonna be okay now because I added a crap ton, no pun intended, maybe a little bit of pun intended, chicken poop straw from the chicken pen. I moved all that in here, mixed it in. I got each layer really, really wet. So one thing I've definitely learned over the past few years is that your compost pile needs to be pretty big for it to actually compost. If you are doing a compost pile that's like 2 feet cubic, that's not going to be big enough. You need a pile that's like 4 by 6 feet or something like that. So this one is a pretty good size, and hopefully it does the trick. Google also told me that mixing in some existing soil into the compost pile is a good idea. So I mixed in a little bit of soil, but not that much, but we'll see if that helps too. The compost pile seems to have stopped composting, which is kind of weird because it doesn't look composted. The only thing that I can think of is that whenever I was taking everything out of the compost bin to put on the garden to compost, like half of it had already composted already, and I have put in a whole bunch of chicken straw crap, so there should be enough nitrogen, and I've added water to it, and it's been really hot. The pile just seems to be done composting. So I'm just gonna call it and put it over the garden. Hello. So, I mean, although there's a lot of straw in it, I added a lot of straw really late in the game, but it smells like soil, and I think most of it had already broken down, honestly. What do you think? Nice boogers. Alright, I really hope you guys enjoyed that video of our urban homestead composting system. Again, it is such a great way to reduce waste and not have to send it to the landfill, not have your trash fill up all the time, and not have the wastefulness on your consciousness of just sending perfectly good and nutrient-rich stuff to the landfill. It's been really awesome for our son to understand how, I think he might be a little bit too young, but it makes me feel better as a mom to say that he is also learning that food is compostable and can get put into the garden. Another thing that I'll go over in another video of how to set up and plan your urban homestead. If you wanted to set it up so your chickens had access to the compost, that's such a great way to further reuse the compost, so the chickens can eat the compost, and then they also help break it down, and they're also adding nitrogen by pooping all over it too. So that's a really great system. We had set up our compost system like a year or two before we set up our chickens, and so it wasn't a system that we put together, but you certainly can do that, and it's a really, really great way to have the chickens break down your compost for you faster. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.